When I started using video in my business, it helped me to grow it to multiple six figures. And here's exactly how it changed everything. So like a lot of people, when they first start out in business, they work on different things, right? And I mean specifically ways to generate business. So I was doing that. I was doing cold calls and I was doing cold DMs and reaching out to my sphere of influence. And look, it actually worked, which was great. But barely, it was just enough for me to get by. But here's what really frustrated me about this is that it felt really forced. And honestly, it was draining and hard to scale. And I didn't feel comfortable doing it. I never, ever felt comfortable cold calling people. But I did it because that's what people told me to do. They told me that if I wanted to build my business the right way, these are the things that I really needed to hone in on, and it just didn't feel like me. And I know that you've probably been there before too, and you probably thought to yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I sitting on a phone and calling people who I don't necessarily want to talk to, and I'm trying to ask them for business because it feels salesy, it feels like a little slimy, sleazy, you know what I mean? And it's just really hard to stay consistent doing something over and over again that your heart isn't really into. At the end of the day, I was chasing leads instead of attracting them. And I've learned this in business, especially when it comes to video content. You are either a hunter or a farmer. Hunters go out every single day and look for their next prey, right? They look for their next meal. For a salesman, that's the person that is cold calling all the time, making hundreds of calls every day. Just going out every single day, cold calling, hitting the pavement, door knocking, whatever it is. And then on the other end, you have farmers. Farmers plant seeds, water the seeds, and watch that grow over time. And that is the power of creating video content. When you're creating video content, you're planting little seeds all over the internet. And what happens is you water that over time with your consistency, with the frequency that you put out videos. And then at some point, they start to flower and they start to produce for you in a way that just makes it so much more attractable to stay consistent with it. And it makes you want to do it day after day, week after week, and month after month, and year after year, because you know that it actually works. But here's what happened with me. I didn't actually know that it was going to work. I had no idea what I was doing when I first got started in video until I figured this out. What really sparked it in my head is the fact that I saw other people winning with video in my industry. And it really pulled me to try it because here I had learned over, a couple of years that I was in the real estate business that I really loved marketing, and more so putting out a message that attracts people, that makes them want to work with me. So I thought, how do I do that on a much higher scale than what I'm doing? How do I actually take my message and multiply it so that other people see it that aren't just, my Facebook friends or Instagram friends, but how do I do it in a way that is going to be more grand, right? And more out there, as opposed to just putting a picture up and then writing text underneath of it. Now, I will say that I was very fortunate at the time because I had a friend who was also a real estate agent. He was at the same real estate brokerage as me, and he was a professional videographer. He actually went to school for it. He filmed, he photographed, right? And he was someone that was helping me, get a little bit more comfortable. Even though I ended up doing everything by myself, I still asked him questions and I still ran things by him and I still, utilized his strengths and his mastery of what he did. And that is what helped me really to get started. And in addition to that, I started reading books, I started getting on YouTube, and I was just consuming content over and over and over and over again. And I still felt a little unsure, but I started anyway. And I'm so thankful that I decided to start anyway, and I started messy. And again, I had no experience at all. So you don't need to come into this with any kind of experience at all. You can just figure it out along the way. And now in 2025 and moving forward, the amount of content that's out there on how to get started, utilizing video in your business, what this page is all about is staggering. And the great thing is you only need your phone, right? Like you don't need any kind of professional gear. You just need your phone. I highly suggest that you use your phone and you get good lighting and good audio, right? So if you want to act more professional, right, just get a lavalier mic. That's all I use here. That's all you really need to get started. Hey, if this is clicking for you, I run a free group that's all about how to utilize video in your business to attract the right clients and build a community. And I get to go deeper in that community than I do on this platform. So it's a free group. All you got to do is scan the QR code or click the link in the description and join. So after I got started, there was still something that was holding me back a little bit, but I fought through it because I realized this. I had the mindset, right? Because my early content, all those videos I put out, they were not polished. Like I literally had crooked videos. The lighting was off. The audio was off. Like even though I had a lavalier mic, like it just felt off and it didn't really come across as professional. And to me, that was a big red flag. And I was like, okay, well, if this is not going to come across professional, why am I doing this, right? Why am I going to continue to put out this content? Because I don't know if it's actually going to work. And what's really important for you to understand, and this might be the most important thing, is that you have to commit to making a certain amount of videos before you say this doesn't work. This is a brand new channel for me. Like I'm literally filming this video a month in, and I don't have nearly the amount of views that I have on my other channels. And I don't have even close to the amount of people reaching out to me that I did on my other channels, but I am committed to doing this at least for a solid year, right? 12 months, making a long form video or two every single week, as well as shorts, because I understand that early stage, you have to get started and you have to get revved up with it and you have to start building before you're actually ready. But the cool thing was back then in 2018 and 2019, people started reaching out. That was cool. They're like, hey, Shawn, I've been watching your videos. And I don't know, I forget the first person who reached out, but I just remember having that feeling like, oh my God, people are actually watching this. Like, this is great. And the conversations started turning into clients, right? And I closed those clients and I started making money from it. And I was like, oh my God, this is so me, right? Sitting in front of the camera, talking to you, giving valuable information that lands at the right time, and people were connecting to it. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And when you realize that turns into actual dollars, like, look, we're running a business, this isn't a nonprofit. It's great if you do video for a nonprofit. I'm not saying that, but you're watching this to create videos for your business to make money. Like that's the end goal, okay? That's what we're focusing on. And when that actually happens, it changes everything. But then I got bit by that bug and I'm like, wow, this is something that I can do consistently. And I didn't do it consistently for years after I started. I would say that I filmed videos kind of consistent for 4 years before I got really consistent. But then I finally learned that I need to do this next thing in order to stay really consistent. In the beginning, you're just winging it. You're trying to figure out what to do, what to say, what message actually connects until you start figuring out what message actually connects. But showing up on video for me forced me to really nail down who I was actually talking to. And this is one of those things that I wished I had learned back in 2018, that if I focused on just niching down and creating video content for a certain audience to build a loyal community of raving fans, which is what I teach on this channel. And that's my one core message that I want to share with you. It's not about going viral. It's about finding that smallest viable market that was coined by Seth Godin and figuring out how you can build a loyal community of raving fans around that, because you don't need everyone. You do not need to reach every single person. You need to reach the right people and then build connection around creating video content that's actually going to get them to really trust you and listen to what you're saying. Then eventually you're going to start figuring out who it's really for. And over time, the message is going to get sharper and it's going to get more focused. And once you package that together, that's when the magic really happens. But before that, you really need to focus on this next part and nail it in order to blow up massively. Here's the thing with creating content. You can put out certain messages, you can say certain things, and you can attract a ton of leads, hundreds, thousands, right? You can say things that are maybe true to you or they're not true to you. Like you can go down way different paths and again, attract a ton of leads. But here is what you really need to realize. It's not about quantity, it's about the quality of leads. And when I finally niched down, that's when I saw the quality of lead explode. And I'm not talking about like hundreds of leads a week. I'm talking about the right amount of leads. People who reached out and already felt like they knew me. And if you're already making video content now, which you probably are, you're probably getting those messages as well. They call you and they're like, oh wow, I actually didn't think you were gonna answer. You know, I found you on YouTube. You know, I binge watch your videos. I love what you were saying and I want to work with you. So the calls that I was getting, they weren't like saying that I need to convince them to work with me. They were already saying, hey, Shawn, I want to work with you. So then it was me filtering out if I thought we were going to be a good fit working together. And once that happens, that is what I believe is the true magic, because you can get these people to call you and reach out and they're just saying, I really want to work with you. I've watched all your videos. I know you know what you're doing. And that's how you build that loyal community of raving fans. That is the key. That is the start of it all. Because when sales gets easier and you actually are not really selling, it makes creating videos that much easier. And it's sustainable, because sustainability is not something that I hear talked about a lot. I definitely hear some creators talking about it, but the masses, not at all. Sustainability is what's key in this, in business in general, you know? Like, do you have to make 7, 8 figures? No, most people just want to build a solid business making 100 grand, 250, 500, 700, you know? Like me, I don't need to build a team, a media company of 40 people making $50 million a year. Like, would that be cool? Maybe, I don't know. Like, I love doing this. Like, I love just sitting, again, in front of the camera, talking to you, having that one-on-one conversation and helping you out that way. Doesn't need to be this giant business, because most people, and I know you are in this boat as well, you just want to be happy with what you have and build on that. And if all of that sounds great, and you want to learn how to actually make your business offer easy to understand, then make sure that you watch this next video.